There are many characters that exist within the multiple universes of JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, but in both of those universes, there are a few characters that were treated as bad by the author as Muhammad Avdol. Now you may ask me, how did Hirohiko Araki treat him bad? He killed him in a part twice. But oh no, we'll get to more later. But to start off, Muhammad Avdol was the first stand user within JoJo's Bizarre Adventures that we saw. That we actually saw their stand. And after that, he doesn't really do much of note. Like, in all seriousness, there's not really much of note when we look at the fandom page. And from my memory, I do remember him and Polnareff arguing a little bit before that, encounter where Polnareff got ambushed. But I also do remember, I'm pretty sure it was Avdol versus Polnareff. Yep, it sure was. And that fight was fantastic. I just went back and rewatched it in between cuts. You already know how it is. But from there, we get to the Hanged Man arc, where Polnareff does not listen to Avdol's advice, where he tells him do not go rushing in. Polnareff goes rushing in. He gets ambushed. And Avdol comes to save him. And that almost cost his life. But he survived, and the rest of the group knew, except Polnareff, as they felt like Polnareff's quickness to rush into action would just basically give Avdol away while he was severely injured and kill him. Which, again, that's fair. That's very fair. So we get this time where they go to his island, and he pretends to be his father, refuses to speak to Polnareff, and he just fakes like, I'm his dad. I don't know what happened. I'm mourning my son's loss while I tend to my family. It wasn't until Polnareff got attacked by a stand user who was, I'm pretty sure he was making people he loved out of clay. So he made Avdol, he made his sister, he made a lot of things out of clay. He could just make anything out of clay, I'm pretty sure. Really think about that for a second. You go to an island, you're on vacation, this random quote-unquote genie comes to you saying, oh yeah, I could grant any 3 wishes. You say, oh yeah, I want $1 billion. Bet. And you just see this big ass stack of money. You I just won the lottery. Until you actually try to spend that shit and the shit just dissolves, breaks down. It had to be hella traumatic for Polnareff because imagine you just saw your dead sister and your quote-unquote dead friend who you feel guilty that you quote-unquote killed him, because you kind of did. They're shown to you. You get to talk to them, all that. And then just like that, they start turning on you. Then they disappear. And that was a stand attack. I would be so pissed. I would be highly pissed and crying. Because what do you mean you just showed me all of my dead relatives as clay to try to kill me? Luckily, Avdol came in with the save. You already know. He's the GOAT. Even though he did about 10 things in part 3. And it's 48 episodes. After this, he did another key crucial point, which is as the Speedwagon Foundation to bring Iggy. Meaning he got them another member. Again, can we appreciate my GOAT really quick? I have to stop and appreciate everything we got because there's not much left that he did in this part. I'm not gonna lie. After that, they were attacked by Endul, the water stand, where during that time, Avdol almost beat him. Believe it or not, if you remember that fight, at the start, Avdol used his handcuffs to try to emulate footsteps in the sand. But unfortunately, Endul figured it out and injured Avdol, taking him out the fight. And finally, we're at Dio's mansion, where this is very funny because the conversation between Polnareff and Avdol actually ensued. And I'm going to include this conversation because it's one of the most important parts of both of their characters. Avdol told Polnareff he could not act as his bodyguard no more, and that he had to be more careful. And once they walk in, Avdol begins to detect vanilla ice. And as they continue walking, Avdol puts his hand on a pillar that reads these following words: "He who reads this carving and turns aback will perish." And what happened? Avdol turned around and his stand started to manifest. Cream manifested, and Avdol, with his last movements, pushed Iggy and Polnareff out the way because they did not know what was happening and was instantaneously killed. And to add insult to injury, his arms were eaten after the fact. Like, Cream came back, picked his arms up, and ate them. So why am I highlighting what Avdol did while this video is literally titled, Why Avdol Deserved Better? Because you can see through these actions that I'm telling you, he barely did anything throughout that 48 episodes. That was everything he did. There was probably a few minor stuff I missed, like him maybe bringing his stand out in defense of the group whenever they ran into a stand fight. I maybe missed that, you know, and that's on me. But for a good portion of this story, he is not with the group. And it's for a reason that some people think is stupid and some people don't. It's because Araki did not like drawing him or his stand. Now, let me also say that is not the whole reason, I don't think. And I also don't think, when I look for references, all I could find was really, he didn't like drawing his stand. He didn't. I've never heard him say anything about Avdol necessarily, but I know he didn't like drawing his stand. If you look at the back of part 3 of Stardust Crusaders, volume 6, you would see him, he has a little writing that looks like this right here. You would see him say that he found drawing Magician's Red a little difficult. But in that same section, he also admitted that he feels like he should have given Araki a slightly bigger role within the story. But he also said that he didn't think he would be as popular at the time, which is pretty fair. I don't believe Avdol's popularity charts were that high, but even still, Jesus, man. But that's really all I got for y'all. If y'all enjoyed the video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We're on the road to 5K, so anything helps. And until next time, peace. Sometimes in animes, we may notice that the main character goes through a lot of trials during their backstory just so they could go through a story of overcoming all those problems and differences and doubts and coming out on top. And we see that a lot throughout the anime, JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. But today I want to focus on one of those main characters, one of those Joestars, who is my top 3 favorite Joestar of all time, Jolyne Cujoh. Now, I can't believe I haven't done this yet, but I thought I had already made a video of Jolyne on my channel, but apparently not. I was just thinking about video ideas today because spring break started, and of course I have a lot of free time, so I was like, you know what? Why not record one? But really, this video will probably be titled Jolyne Deserved Better, and there will probably be someone in the comments telling me that, no, so-and-so had it much, much worse, and maybe they did, or maybe they didn't, but Jolyne still had it pretty bad, I won't lie. Starting from childhood, she lived with her mother and her father, but her father, Jotaro Kujo, could never be around her like that. He literally took extra precautions to stay away from her just so that she wouldn't be tracked down by stand users or any other supernatural events that happens in the world of JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. He wanted to leave her completely out of the catch up. That's why we never see her along with him in missions like when he went to Morio or when he went to Italy. We wouldn't see her because during both those times she was alive. Sure, during both of those she would be very young. I think 7 and 9, 7 during part 4 and 9 during part 5. But even still, he doesn't mention her, talk about her, none of that. But that's only to protect her. But growing up, that was something that she didn't quite get, which again, understandable. In the mind of a child, if you have a father or a mother and you never see them and your parents were at one point together, you'll wonder what happened. But all of his extra staying away and work related trips would just come to a crash when Jolyne Cujoh started to get into trouble just because no one was there to stop her or really talk to her. Really, her mother couldn't even really stop her. She just would do what she wanted to.
Stop that nigga dick, bro. What is you doing? What? No.
When we get that flashback of her, I think when she was 15, you know. By that point, she had already been doing juvenile crimes, honestly. And from what we've seen, her father wasn't coming back. He had barely been home. Her mom called him like while she was about to be thrown in jail, and he still said he was not coming. And she even mistook someone else for her father because he's wearing a similar fit. Like, that's crazy. But I say all that to say that her resentment towards Jotaro was valid. As a matter of fact, it was completely valid when you take into account that she didn't know about any supernatural things at all before she got to jail. And even then, as she's in jail, as we see part 6 progress, she's learning more about what the hell is going on. But this is where I feel like it gets really messed up for her, because from this point, I'm going to start talking about how Poochie essentially put her into something that she had nothing to do with, just so he could get Jotaro. Because when she was 19, I'm pretty sure she's 19 in part 6, but when she was 19, that's when she got into the car crash that Poochie had orchestrated to get her into his prison. Keep in mind, when you look at all the other parts, even up to this point, we never really see the Joestar just get thrusted into a plot where it's not even about them. And the Joestar didn't even say their goal. Jolyne never said her goal at the beginning of part 6 before we get to the Jotaro parts, where she finally says her goal is to leave this prison. If you look at part 5, Giorno was on it. He said his goal by episode 2. He said, I had a dream really quick. But with that being said, now imagine with all that backstory I've told you, and on top of the fact that she doesn't know that there's another secret plot going on, imagine her confusion when she sees her father, who's barely shown up throughout her entire life, finally shows up to see her in jail, just for them to immediately get attacked by someone who she doesn't even know, with the context of why he could even be attacking her or what his stand is. All the while, during most of the fight, while you don't do jack shit, your father literally steps in, pushes you out the way so that he takes the brunt of the attack, and Whitesnake gets to stand this, rendering him useless for majority of part 6. That is actually genuinely crazy. When you think about what she walked into, that by episode 5 she essentially just had to get accustomed to while still learning her stand, you could actually see, I think you could see where I feel like she's one of my favorite characters. That resiliency to just still bounce back, even with what some people call a weak stand. I don't call Stone Free a weak stand at all. You know, I feel like that stand right there, it's definitely a good one. Especially when you compare it to Whitesnake, which has feats against Weather Report and all these different stands. I feel like it's a good stand. But during the all of part 6, after that point, Jolyne is essentially forced to go on a wild goose chase of Poochie within his own prison while still fighting these stand users that he can pick which ones he can throw at you, because he can literally make stand discs, or he can take and make stand discs and give them to anyone he wants to. So since he knows your type of stand, he's obviously going to give someone a stand disc that can combat yours. So you're fighting people who are literally built to combat your own style. And it's not like any of her side characters were necessarily with her for a super long time. You know what I mean? Like Hermes, there was a point in the story where Hermes was literally gone for a minute after the sports match fight because it took so much out of her. And that was really her Joe, bro. That was really who she probably would have needed in the later fights. Like when Poochie got away by throwing Jotaro's disc, that's who she would have needed in order to help try to contain Poochie. But even as you get to the end throughout part 6, Jolyne, she did everything she could, and she even still at the end cooked up one last plot that worked and reset the universe, bringing her back, which was her giving Emporio the literal Weather Report disc and putting him on a dolphin and telling him to go while she tried to hold off Made in Heaven. That was one of her greatest feats, at least in my opinion, because she literally, her doing that caused the universe to go back to the way it was, stopping Pucci's plan. But I feel like she deserved better because she didn't even get what the other Joestars or JoBros got, where they at least get to travel around the world and try to develop plans to stop Pucci. No, Pucci got his stand evolution, then she had to try to develop a plan to stop his stand evolution that she's never seen. But that's all I got for y'all. If y'all enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. We're on the road to 5K, so anything helps. And until next time, peace. Imagine you were born as a twin, and on your day of birth, what is supposed to be the happiest day of your parents' life, someone comes, switches you out with a dead baby, and takes you, and leaves and raises you, leading your actual birth parents to believe that their child had died at birth, and that they only have one son and one daughter. Today we're talking about Weather Report, otherwise known as Wes, otherwise known as the baby who got stolen. And if I'm being honest, there aren't many people or characters in JoJo that I feel actual genuine sadness for, or I even feel bad for. Weather Report is definitely one of them, because when we see him, when he's even introduced to us, he has amnesia. He can't remember anything. He can't remember his real name. That's why they still just call him Weather Report. But when you find out the history and find out just what his brother did to him, because again, you could make the argument that yes, his brother didn't know that the Triple K would come after him, but you could not make the argument that his brother was still fucking up his life. I'm getting a little bit too ahead of myself. Let's get into this backstory. Of course, you know it will lead up. Born on June 5th, 1972 as Domenico Pucci, Weather Report ended up being stolen by a woman whose baby had passed away after she had given birth to the baby. And from there, he was raised as Wes. His first name was Wes. And while he was under that name, he was a juice delivery boy. Now, one day, I'm pretty sure something from Perla, who is Pucci and he didn't know, the younger sister, he said he stopped something from getting stolen from her. And within 2 weeks' time, they started dating. Now, pause. There's a big issue for multiple reasons, because for one, now you have Weather Report dating his younger sister unknowingly, and for two, no one at this point knows that they are related, like at all. Well, no one except Pucci, because once Pucci finds out, he starts trying to extort options that would hurt his sister the least, and that's when he calls a private and detective agency. And if you remember correctly, that private detective agency would end up being the Triple K. Now, what they did was pretty vital. They looked into Weather Report's mother's records and found out that his stepfather was actually an African American man. Yeesh. So like it was the Deep South in the 1940s, they did a lot of unholy, unsane things to Weather Report, and they made Perla, his girlfriend at the time, watch while insulting her. Low-key, I'm pretty sure they hit her up just a little bit. It was a bad situation. Really, again, this is Pucci's fault. And before y'all come in my comments, oh, he didn't know it was the Triple K. Tell your sister to stop dating you. Get an ancestry test. What are we talking about? Do something other than that. Literally, everything I'm talking about takes place in the mid-80s. What? Come on, bro. Like, this specific part takes place in the mid-fucking 80s. You can't tell me there weren't ancestry tests or something of that effect in the 80s. Pucci, what are you doing? That's not smart. That's actually pretty dumb. But anywho, after the attack, Perla cuts Weather Report down, which I'm not going to say where he was. Just know she cut him down. And then after she checked his post and realized she thought he didn't have a post, when in reality it was a very faint post, she jumped off a cliff. And before Weather Report could even want to follow suit, Poochie has stabbed himself with an arrow, giving not only him stand powers, also Weather Report stand powers. So now, once he regains consciousness, he cannot die. Well, he can, but he can't die off his own free will, meaning he can't choose the easy way out. At least that was his thoughts. As it said, whenever he tried to jump off a cliff, the wind would blow him back onto the side of the mountain. Whenever he tried to drown himself, the water would push itself back to shore. Whenever he tried to, the gun would be jammed with water. Oh yeah, also he did go to that quote-unquote private detective agency, and he made them give him information on Poochie. But it was on the 4th day of him waking up and having his stand powers to where snails started to fall from the sky, and Poochie pulled up on him and he gave him the real news. He told him, yo, we're brothers. Not only that, we're twins. And then you know what he did? Immediately wiped his fucking memory, took his memory disk with White Snake, and then for the cherry on top, he had that nigga imprisoned. For what you may ask, attempted murder. 6 years. Crazy. Now that we finished his backstory, I think y'all can understand why I feel so bad for him. Really think about it. You just met this girl. You thought she was cool. You thought she was cute. Whatever the case was. Y'all start dating. Then her brother, who turns out to be your brother too, calls the triple K on you. They do very unholy and unnice things. Your girlfriend cuts you down from a tree, takes your pulse, thinks you're gone, and then she jumps off a cliff. So once you wake up, you see her off a cliff. So that means in the matter of a week or less, your whole life got turned upside down because you wanted to be a good Samaritan and stop someone from robbing a nice young woman. Y'all see where good deeds get you? I'm joking. Of course, I'm joking. But in all seriousness, this man, Weather Report, didn't have his memories for so long after him and Poochie had that little scuffle and Poochie took his memories. Poochie was basically controlling this man damn near for years on end, I think decades. Because you look at the backstory, they were teens when it happened. Weather Report and Poochie are both 39 in part 6. They are both 39 at the start of part 6. And by the end, they're about to turn 40. So imagine 22 years, up to at least 22 years of your life has been robbed from you. It's been stolen by your own brother. What would you do? Well, I'm about to show y'all what Poochie did. I mean, not Poochie. Well, technically Poochie. I mean, they have the same last name. So after Donatello versus one of Dio's sons came and gave Weather Report back his memories, that man was a demon. Like, a real fucking demon. Because you'll have to remember, Weather Report was never able to fully get his anger out for all the events that happened to him within that time frame. This is essentially like him picking up where he left off 20-something odd years ago. And that's a bad situation if you're a regular ass person and you're not Poochie. Because for the regular people that were around him, they were getting cooked. He had put an extreme amount of water in someone, turning them into a damn blob. He was electrocuting women, talking about, oh yeah, we just gotta chill. Sitting on the bench, not trying to chase Poochie down no more. While all this is happening, an infestation of snails are falling from the sky and coming everywhere in Orlando. So I'm pretty sure it was because Weather Report and Poochie both had their powers at the same time or something. It had to be something like that. But Weather Report, he says he needs to up the score on Poochie and so dive her down, because honestly, with him and Weather Report, they both use their stands to go search around the town and they don't see him. Up until Poochie pulls up in a car, takes off one of Weather Report's legs, pulls up in the car, and Poochie emerged from the snails being damn unaffected by Weather Report's heavy weather ability. Because usually I'm pretty sure they like turn you into snails or something, because I'm pretty sure immediately after this, Anasui got turned into a fucking snail. And this is where we get that 1v1. Them niggas was going at it. Now, Poochie, he was able to take off both of Weather Report's legs. Now, they were replaced by Diver Down, but he still took them. And Weather, at this point, Weather don't give a fuck. He wants to die. Weather Report literally said that if he cannot get Poochie, he wants it to be over. So Weather Report, he's using his stand ice spikes from the floor, then he used the dried up blood to make more ice spikes. And low-key, it looked like Weather had it, like really had it. He was low-key starting to mess up Poochie up until a car crashes into them. And guess who's in that damn car? Versus Jolyne, Emporio, and Hermes. And since they lost control of the car, they crashed into the twins. And by the time they got out and tried to help Weather Report, he had already been stabbed through the chest. But he was able, which ended up actually saving them in the end, to get his stand disc and give it to Jolyne. And that was the tragic passing of Weather Report. And I want to remind y'all with this, Weather Report only got to experience his from birth to teenage years actually having his memories but not knowing who he was. And then literally a day at the end of his life of him knowing who he was, having his teenage years, and also knowing why he was so angry with fucking Poochie. Like, I feel like there are very few characters I can say even deserve better. And Weather Report is definitely one of them. Having your names taken away from you, having your life taken away from you, and you get put in jail for something you didn't commit, and for something that wasn't even in your control, but you got put into it because your twin brother wants to play God. But if y'all enjoyed the video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. You know, we're on the road to 2K. We're at 1.6. So please, thank you. And until next time, peace. In JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, there's a common recurring theme of characters who often deserved a lot better than they got. A lot of characters just end up getting the short end of the stick. And today we're going to talk about one in particular. One that I really have grown to like over the years of just talking about, or even rewatching or rereading JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. Narancia. Now, Narancia was 17 at the time of his death, but in all honesty, we have to talk about his early life first and just how awful it was, because they did that man so poorly. I'm just surprised he was able to even make it out of being homeless. Yes, he was homeless. But at 10 years old, his mother died of an eye disease, and his father did not love him that much after his mother died. Like, that's literally stated in the show and in the manga. His father was just an asshole. And he began neglecting Narancia. Narancia started not going to school, leaving school, skipping with his friends, going to their houses, stealing from restaurants. Like, they were doing a lot. It got so bad to the point where he rarely showed up at school by the age of, I think, 14. But Narancia also had a problem. Because friendship was everything he had, he believed friendship was the most important thing in the world. And that caused him to be easily manipulated. And that's how an older friend told him, hey, you should dye your hair blonde. And he was like, oh, okay. And then he did it. And then he got blamed for a crime he didn't do, placing him in jail for a year, juvie for a year. He then asked around for information. He found out his friend, quote unquote, did the crime and simply put the blame on him. Now, the crime was pretty heinous, honestly. He beat an old woman, broke into her house and beat her. I don't know what the thought process is for that, especially be like 13, 14, but he did it. But when he was 15, he was finally released from jail, juvie, albeit he was constantly beat up by the correctional officers. So he had a black eye, or his eye was really swollen. It was just always pretty fucking swollen. And that caused a rumor to start spreading that he had the same eye disease that killed his mother, causing his friends, when he got out, to
not want to talk to him. But he learned that it was the same nigga that put him in jail that spread the rumor. And Narancia, bless his heart, believed that he was going to die of the same disease as his mother. Now, if I'm being honest, I would have ran the fade with that man so bad. He would have got snuck. I'm sorry. Why are you lying on me twice? Can you please just leave me the fuck alone? Like, Jesus, like, I'm surprised Narancia, even with his anger issues, never went back and tried to find him. Because I would have. Especially if I have a stand. Oh, yeah. He's chopped cheese. I'm sorry. It's over. After that, his tragedies finally kind of let up. He was homeless for a time period. Then he was found by Fugo. Fugo got him a meal. And I think Bruno called him an ambulance and brought him to the hospital. After that, 3 weeks later, his eye disease was cured. He was fine. But he wanted to join the mafia after he learned about what Bruno did. And Bruno said, "Don't be fucking stupid, you little shit." And told him to go back home. Now, Narancia, he did go back home. Until he came back, went to Popo, and passed the test. And just joined the group. So, now we're finally at the event of Golden Wind. And throughout Golden Wind, Narancia, he does his thing. It was a varying amount of times he was needed, and some he wasn't. For example, at the end of the Risotto versus Diablo fight, oh my god, still to this day, Risotto should have won. Them razors, them blades were cutting that man up. He was getting shish kebabbed against him. He couldn't do shit. But most of his fights involved members of La Squadra, except the moment where he almost didn't go with the group and stayed with Fugo, except he started remembering how it felt being betrayed and losing and abandoned by people, so he jumped in and joined. To which I'm pretty sure Fugo said something like, "You're gonna get yourself killed." Maybe he should have listened. But now we're finally to the last point of contention, one of the most painful points, at least for me, his death. Oh my goodness. Once they get to the Coliseum, Narancia is the first person to die. And he dies in a time of confusion. Everyone was looking for Giorno's body because Narancia's soul was within it. And then Diablo skips time. He's gone. I forget whose body he was in. I'm pretty sure he was hiding, but he skipped time. And next thing we know, we see his lifeless body somehow on the iron bars. I still to this day do not know how he got up there. I'm pretty sure the best way I could probably describe it, because based on the way King Crimson's ability works, this is probably the way it works. He used his sub ability to see 10 seconds into the future, saw himself somehow putting him on the iron bars like that, then just skipped 10 seconds so the action would automatically happen. But either way, that was a painful moment, and we see Fugo, safe and sound, still in Italy, just look up to the sky as if he knew his best friend was gone. Bro, he deserved better. There was no way that he should have went out like that, bro. I'm sorry. He clutched up a good amount of times. He had a lot of spotlight moments, but like, damn, he couldn't even get a fight or a moment against King Crimson. Just immediate death. But really, that's all I got for y'all. If y'all enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. And honestly, leave a comment if you think Fugo deserved better. We're on the road to 5K, so until next time. Peace. Within JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, there are a lot of characters I do feel bad for just because they were dealt a pretty shitty hand. But one I really do feel bad for is Abbacchio. I feel like he really had a fucked up life. From his backstory, we learned that soon after high school, he went straight to the police academy. And he thought it was going to be a very fulfilling work where he just wanted to help people, make people better, get crime off the streets, all the typical shit, until he actually got out there and he was like, oh, these people fucking suck. I'm sorry, but if I'm trying to make things better,
And all I hear from y'all after I done made 5 arrests in the same area, all I keep hearing is, you're not doing your job. I'm just going to look at you like this. What do you mean I'm not doing my job? And it's also the fact that all the criminals or just the people tried to run out of any offenses they had. And it also adds to the fact that even if you did get it booked, 90% of the time, if you had enough money or if you had enough ties to the mafia, you were getting out. Now, this comes from one particular story that we get in his actual backstory where Abbacchio, who was patrolling the streets one night, and he saw a man and a prostitute working the corner. And he came up to them. Of course, he was about to book him. But then the man, he gave him a bribe. He said the girl was just trying to repay some of her father's debts. And Abbacchio was tasked with the tough question of whether he was going to take the bribe or just book him. And unfortunately, he took the bribe. He thought that by taking it, he was doing the same thing that still would have happened either way. If he would have booked him, he probably would have paid off some judges or some police officers to get him out, and he would have went back on the streets doing the same thing. So by him taking a bribe, it just, balanced out. But even then, that logic is still pretty fucking stupid. Because how does that balance out? You're getting money. Anyway, one night, a thief broke into a house, and Abbacchio and his partner, they came into the house and they split up trying to find him. Well, Abbacchio found the thief first and realized it was the same guy who bribed him before. Now, the guy, he recognized him and he was like, yo, you don't book me, I'll stop. I'm not doing nothing else. And then he even turned up. He said, hey, if you arrest me, I'm going to tell everybody. And Abbacchio, he was swaying. At one point he said he was going to arrest him, but at another point he was just thinking. And he thought too much to the point where he let the thief get ready to draw a gun. Saved by the grace of God, or really by the grace of his partner's life, his partner jumps in front of the bullet and fires off a few shots, killing the thief, but also the partner had a fatal shot, I'm pretty sure like in his chest or neck or something. Now, of course, stories and news of this broke out, and he was discharged from the police academy before accepting a bribe, but it was far deeper than that. It haunted him. The fact that his partner had died for him, essentially, for his own corruption, for his own wrongdoings. And it made him unable to be happy at any other point, like actually happy, at any other point in his life after that. Like, it literally fundamentally changed him. It changed him so much to the point where after he joined Passion, which I'm pretty sure it's never really disclosed when exactly, but after he joined Passion, he was only really happy whenever he got a mission of very high importance, because he said it helped him cope with the pain. He didn't say those words, but the death of his partner fundamentally changed him so much to the point where he doesn't know actual peace until the time Abbacchio dies and he sees his partner again. I feel like Araki made him such a well-written character. That's really how I feel about almost all the Part 5 characters, but they're so well written that their backstories are such a key, integral part of who they are. No matter which way you twist or turn it, you can always come back and find a reason for why they did majority of their actions. But still, he deserved better. He was a man who would rather uphold justice rather than letting the truth be twisted and contorted in any sort of way. And really, he just lost sight of what was important. That's why that final scene that we see after he's died, essentially, and this is the last bit of his conscience, talking to his partner, where his partner's just like, yeah, I never lost sight of the truth. I was always looking for the truth, not whether I was going to get a conviction or not. And we see Abbacchio literally be envious of that. He's envious of the fact that he lost sight of that. He lost sight of everything that made him want to become a police officer. You know what I mean? But that's also the part of the reason that makes him such a good character. Because you look at the way he acts with Giorno, it's as if with Giorno, whenever Giorno's like, I have a dream, Giorno's so convicted, so strong-willed. He sees so much of his young 18-year-old fresh police academy self in him. He wants to mold him into something more serious, something that knows your dreams and aspirations are most likely going to stay dreams and aspirations. Now, am I excusing Abbacchio for pissing in that tea and serving it to Giorno?
Ugh. Brother, ugh. What's that? What's that?
Fuck no. Fuck no. I'm sorry. He was still like 23, 24 doing that. Come on, bro. But I can say he was rather trying to shape the young 15-year-old. Because again, Giorno, when we actually get Abbacchio's backstory, it makes so much sense why he started off with so much hostility towards Giorno. Because again, Abbacchio came in with a clear goal, a goal for righteousness and good and justice. He wanted justice for the people within his community. You know, a similar goal to what Giorno and Bruno both want. But with Giorno, I feel like it was more so he didn't want to end up leading Giorno straight to his death, because he saw how much Giorno essentially came in and he became the team healer. You know what I mean? When you look back at part 5, a lot of the times Giorno's running like a support / attack role, but it's mostly support, and he's supporting really well. But you could say Abbacchio saw that. He saw how selfless he was, how willing he was to sacrifice towards the cause, and he instantly thought immediately of his partner who he let die in his own wrongdoings. And it could have just been rage or, you know, misplaced grief put on Giorno. But Abbacchio, I also feel like that's a part of the reasons why over the years I've grown to really love his character. Because first watch, I didn't necessarily enjoy him that much. In all honesty, I was very confused, you know, especially when the first time we actually see him, he's putting piss in someone's tea. Very confused. Very confused. But, you know, over time, I had realized he is a selfless man who legitimately just lost his way on the path. And even when he lost his way, even though through his mood and his face and his attitude, he was still broken. He was still selfless in those scenarios. Like in part 5, when he does use his stand and he helps, he's the biggest help. But at the end of the day, he did get his ending, the perfect ending for him, where he got to finally talk to his police partner and tell him his mistakes was the cause of his death. And his police partner told him his friends were still proud of him and could sense his sense of justice as they walked into the distance. And man, was his whole death scene, those last 5 minutes we got of him on the screen, man, there was tears shed, I won't lie. But that's really all I got for y'all. If y'all enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. You know, we're on the road to 5K, so anything will help. So until next time, peace.